All right, all right. Shalom. Yahweh Ba'ashim, Yahweh Shah to the brothers. Shalom. Yahweh Shema Alathun Ba'ashim, Yahweh Shah to the sisters. All right. We're the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. Started at the 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, in the Commanding General Yohana. And we're not affiliated with any other Israelite group, nor any other Christian organization, you understand? Alright. So today is apparently, right? Today is a very, very important day. Alright? It's a very, very important day in America, right? That's why they made today is what? Can anybody tell me what today is? Can anybody online? Can anybody tell me what today is? Anybody online? Can anybody tell me what today is? Today is an important day in America, right? What's today? All right. A white man day. I want you to specify. I want you to specify. President's Day. All right. President's Day. You're absolutely right. President's Day. All right. Today is President's Day. Jimmy Bone. Okay. President's Day. All right. So today is President's Day. All right. Good old President's Day, man. So, does anybody know, can anybody take a shot in the dark, right? Or does anybody know the purpose behind celebrating President's Day? Historically. And we'll also get it as well online, word from word. But anybody in their own words, can anybody tell me what's the purpose of celebrating President's Day, and what do you guys know about President's Day already? All right. President's Day. Can anybody tell me so far about President's Day? President's Day, to honor the presidents. Okay. All right, to honor the presidents. All right, I can take that. Anybody else want to give it a shot? The purpose, the reason behind celebrating President's Day. It says a day the schools closed, and also a day they honor the presidents. A lot of jobs closed along with banks. Okay, so another answer of honoring the presidents. Okay, all right, and that's very true. Schools are closed this day, and banks are closed this day. Right? Yeah. Salaki. All right. Shalom. Yahweh Shem Shabbat. A thumb to the brothers. I see y'all. All right. So, okay, a lot of jobs along with banks are closed this day to honor the presidents. Anybody else can tell me anything about President's Day? All right. So, honor the presidents. Okay. Okay, honor the presidents. Anybody else? Okay. So we're going to go ahead and go on. So there's an article online. You can just look this up as well. All right. You guys can go online and look up President's Day. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead. All right. So if you guys did not know, right? Okay. The brother was able to also give me further detail. George Washington's birthday. That is actually the reason behind President's Day. Now, President's Day is to honor the presidents. That's very true, right? Like, we have to understand, like, President's Day is to honor the presidents that served America, right? That is what President's Day is about. But it initially started to celebrate George Washington's birthday. All right. So the brother is absolutely William Ballard, absolutely correct. That brother is absolutely correct. So Washington's birthday is a federal holiday in the United States, celebrated on the third Monday of February in honor of George Washington, the first president of the United States, who was born on February 22nd, 1732. The Uniform Monday Holiday Act of 1971 moved this holiday to the third Monday, which can fall from February 15th to the 21st inclusive. All right. So President's Day was originally about Washington's birthday. It wasn't until 1971 where it wasn't until 1971, which is the Uniform Act and the military. Salaki, I want to say that correctly. The Uniform Monday Holiday Act, that in February it would fall on the third Monday, right? Which either would be the 15th or the 21st. But they would celebrate George Washington's birthday on the date of his birthday, right? Colloquially, the day is also now widely known as President's Day. So now George Washington's birthday is widely known today as President's Day, though the placement of the and is often an occasion to remember all the presidents. So President's Day is not just, it says they honor Abraham, so the brother said they honor Abraham Lincoln as well because he was born on February as well with George Washington. Okay. All right, and we'll get into Abraham Lincoln as well. All right. So, and it's often an occasion to remember all the presidents. So now, all the presidents, right? President's Day is to remember all the presidents of the United States of America. That's from George Washington all the way down to your Donald Trump, right? This is from your George Washington all the way down to your Donald Trumps. Let's see. So let's see. So now, George Washington, right? Let me see. Let's see. All right. So now, Salaki on that. So that's what President's Day is about. It's about George Washington, right? Now, can anybody tell me anything about George Washington, right? Since President's Day is about George Washington and remembering all the presidents, right? Which are the presidents of America. Can anybody tell me anything about George Washington? Like, George Washington in America is viewed to be a great man. That's why President's Day exists in America, right? Like, we have to understand this. George Washington is put on a pedestal and admired and called to be so great and so wonderful because he was the first president of the United States of America. He was such a noble, right? He was so great. He was so wonderful. You know what I'm saying? Because he was the first president of America. He fought in the Revolutionary War. He led the Revolutionary War. So George Washington is so great. George Washington is so wonderful, right? Does anybody know anything about George Washington? Can anybody tell me anything about George Washington? Because he's so taught, like he's in what do I want to say? He's such admired in America. He's so adhered to in America. All right. The brothers say he appointed the first Supreme Court. That's one thing about George Washington, right? He appointed the first Supreme Court. All right. Anybody else want to know anything about George Washington? Does anybody know anything else about George Washington? So he appointed the first Supreme Court. He served twice. Okay. He served 2 terms in America. Anything else about George Washington that we may want to take in consideration? Is there anything that anyone knows about George Washington that we may want to take in consideration? Because he's such a great man. He is a founding father of America. Like, if you love America, right? So if you love America, if we love America, right? And we die hard for America. And we go hard for America. So if we love America, right, that means we love the founding fathers of America. If we go into those voting booths, right, and we vote Democrat or Republican, that means we agree with America. Meaning we are deplorable. Right? It says he plays a key role in the Constitution. Okay. Anybody else know he was a member of the Freemasons? Okay, anything else? Anything else about the founding father of George Washington in America? Like, this is President's Day. President's Day is about the celebration of a birthday of George Washington, right? George Washington. That's what President's Day is about. President's Day is about the birthday of George Washington and remembering the presidents of America. If you consider yourself to be an American, that means you agree with everything that America has done. You agree with all the choices that America has made. You believe in everything that America has established. If you consider yourself to be an American. If you go out and vote, you agree with everything that America has ever established. That means you believe in the Constitution that they created and they wrote and they put into play. If you are a voter, regardless if you are a liberal, regardless if you are a conservative, regardless if you are independent, regardless if you are a Republican, regardless if you are a Democratic, or regardless if you are the Tea Party or the Green Party, if you agree, if you are any of these things, you agree with how America was established. You agree in all the things that America has done throughout history. This is what we have to take in consideration when it comes to President's Day, right? He pushed for people to go to church, but rarely goes. Okay. George Washington was a Protestant. He was pretty much a Christian, a Catholic. right? That's what George Washington was. Okay. This is okay. So you guys listed everything right, and you guys listed everything that you guys knew. Nothing wrong with that, right? So, all right. Let's see. Let me get something real quick. Salaki. Because Captain Kahan put something up, which Captain Kahan definitely put something up, and I believe it was about. Let me see. Hold on, give me 1 second. So you guys listed everything about you guys listed everything correctly about George Washington. George Washington did all those things, right? Let's see. All right. So let's go ahead and get it. So you guys listed everything about George Washington, which is correct. You guys listed everything, and you guys are absolutely right. George Washington did all those things. But this is an important factor that we have to understand. If we want to consider ourselves to be an American, we have to understand American history, right? The reason why they celebrate President's Day. Like, this is a day that all of America takes off. This is the day that the majority of America takes off. Schools are closed. Banks are closed. You don't even go into work this day at times, right? They honor this day. Like, America loves their presidents. But we have to understand right, what these presidents were really about. This may or may not blow your mind. But why are you guys, but now, the reason why I asked you guys this question, right? And the reason why I asked you guys this purposely, because you guys told me everything that you were taught in America's school system about George Washington. And I did this for a reason, because this is the spirit of a slave, right? This was installed in us the way everyone answered the question about George Washington. Everything. So your answers were not wrong. Your answers were right. Like, every brother and sister that had an answer about what do you know about George Washington, you guys said everything right. Every brother and sister said everything right about George Washington, right? But what we have to understand and to point out the spirit within the answers of every brother and sister participating in class that gave an answer to my question today. Everyone said, hey, he established the Supreme Court. That's good. That's something that's good for America. He established the Supreme Court, right? It's a good thing that George Washington established the Supreme Court. No sweat, right? You also said he practiced or pushed everyone to go into church. Oh yeah, what a beautiful thing, right? Right? That's good, right? He was also a Freemason. Yeah, that's good. He was a key part in the writing of the Constitution. Yeah, these are all great things. But this is what we failed to say. And I may blow your mind. George Washington was a slave master. George Washington was a slave holder. He was a slave master. The reason why you have so many blacks in America with the last name Washington, literally it's because of George Washington. He was a slave master. He was a slave trader, right? He was a slave master. He was a slave trader. He sold his slaves. He bought slaves. He agreed with the transatlantic slave trade. He never heard, I know, never heard that, right? No one has ever heard that George Washington was a slave master. Well, look it up, right? Look it up. And I'm going to tell you, but look it up for yourself. George Washington was a big-time slaveholder. He was a slave master. Can anybody guess how many slaves George Washington had? Can anybody tell me how many slaves George Washington had? Like, this is like, we've been taught in America's school system, George Washington, he was the best president ever. He was a great president. He's our founding father. He was a great man. But George Washington was a slave master. So how great could he really be? So you're going to make a day specifically for a slave. He said over 200. Okay, you're not wrong. Over 200 slaves, huh? Okay. And the sister said over 200 slaves. All right. How many? Can anybody else want to give it a shot? Over 200 slaves. The sister's right, but the number is actually higher. Oh yeah. The number is higher, over 200. George Washington was a filthy, disgusting slave master. Right? That's who George Washington was. He wasn't, listen, to the so-called white man, to our oppressor, to the so-called white man, he was a great man. And he should be honored, right? Not over 2,000, ain't that high. So like it says, ain't that high. It ain't that high. But you know, it won't that high. All right. Not over 2,000, maybe 200, but not over 2,000. So to our oppressor in America, George Washington was a great man, a man that was revered, a man that should be honored because of what he done for America. But what we have to understand as black people, we are not American. We are not American. This man is not a great man to us. This man should not be honored by blacks, Hispanics, or Native Indians. Because literally, he was our oppressor. He was our slave master. He was the slave holder. He was the one that was buying slaves and selling slaves. He was the one buying black people off the auction blocks and Native Indians off the auction blocks. And he was selling his slaves off the auction blocks. He was selling his slaves. He was selling black people off the auction blocks and selling so-called black people off the auction blocks, man. That's who George Washington was. George Washington was the one that would go and rape and molest our women during the times of slavery. We were slaves during the time of George Washington's presidency. It was slaves throughout the White House. It was slaves. I'm not talking about the White House in Washington, D.C. The first White House in America, the first White House in America was in the state of Virginia. In the state of Virginia is where the Capitol building and the White House. That's where all this was at first. It wasn't in D.C. It was in the state of Virginia. All right. Like, this was the man that went into slave quarters and would rape and molest and sexually assault Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian women that were his slaves. That's what George Washington is to so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians in America. That's who George Washington is. George Washington was the man that would have a whip and would beat the skin off of our backs until blood is dripping down our legs. That's who George Washington was. George Washington was a military general in the Revolutionary War. He was a general in the Revolutionary War. Meaning George Washington was he believed in discipline. Right? And I remember, right? I remember in school what these devils would say to me, man. Right? These devils, man. Like, our oppressor, I remember when I was in school, they would say George Washington was a good slave master. Even though they knew George Washington was a slave master, right? But they would say George Washington was a good slave master, right? He treated his slaves good. No, George Washington was a brutal slave master because he believed in discipline. So if you did not listen, you are going to be lynched. If you did not listen, you are going to be whipped. If you did not listen, you are going to be sexually assaulted or raped or molested. If you did not listen. That's what George Washington would do. If you did not listen, he would separate you from your family and sell you. That's what George Washington would do. George Washington had over 600 slaves. Right? George Washington had over 600 slaves. Over 600 slaves. Right? George Washington was a major slaveholder before, during, and after his presidency. George Washington was a slaveholder before his presidency, during his presidency, and after his presidency. That's why he was able to accumulate over 600 slaves. But this man is supposed to be honored. Right? Let's go to Exodus chapter 21 verse 16. Let's go to Exodus chapter 21 verse 16. Like these are men that are supposed to be honored. America honors these men by giving them a day to be honored, because these are their founding fathers. George Washington is a founding father. Thomas Jefferson is a founding father. Can anybody tell me how many slaves Thomas Jefferson had? Thomas Jefferson was a slaveholder. If you do not know by now, the majority of the presidents of America had slaves when the time of slavery was prominent. So before Abraham Lincoln constitutionalized slavery, majority of the presidents of America had slaves. How many slaves did Thomas Jefferson have? Can anybody guess? And get Exodus chapter 21 verse 16. Because this is our President's Day. This is what we have to understand about President's Day. This is what we need to know about President's Day, man. This is something that needs to be heard. This is something that needs to be told. Like, if you are so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian, man, completely forget about President's Day. And do not even think in your mind you should ever celebrate it. Nor should you ever think in your mind that the presidents of America are people that should be honored. Don't have that thought in your mind. You don't want to think that at all. That's why we vote every year. That's why we vote every 4 years. Because we believe the presidents of America are men to be honored, are people to be honored. We believe the reason why we vote every 4 years is because we believe that the presidents of America are for black people. It says the sister said they used to take us on field trips to Charlottesville to see the house and plantation. Right. I remember, and that's true. That happens throughout the South, and specifically in Virginia. I heard about that. I heard about taking field trips to see the plantation, the house and the plantation of. Is it Thomas Jefferson or George Washington? Which one? You said Charlottesville, right? Is that Thomas Jefferson or is that George Washington, sis? Like, this is something that we disregard in the black community. Like, we love America so much and we go vote every 4 years, we disregard the history of the presidents in America. Thomas Jefferson, right? We went to in elementary school. Listen, she said, I'm from up north. God forbid they took me to a field trip to see a plantation. God forbid. Listen, that is crazy. That is absolutely ridiculous, right? Thomas Jefferson's plantation was in Charlottesville. If I'm not mistaken, that's where all those so-called white supremacists were at. That's where all the white supremacists were, which was Charlottesville. That riot, if I'm not mistaken, that's where it was. But go figure. That's exactly where the Thomas Jefferson's house and plantation was. There's a reason why, if you go throughout the black community, we have the last name Jefferson. Such and such Jefferson. Such and such Jefferson. That's because we were the slaves. We were the slaves of Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson, right? A president of America. He had over 600 plus slaves. James Madison, over 100 slaves. James Monroe, over 75 slaves. Andrew Jackson, over 200 slaves. Like, these are listen, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Andrew Jackson, and John Adams, these are the founding fathers of America. So Thomas Jefferson and George Washington had over 600 slaves, meaning they bought and sold slaves. Right? They bought and sold slaves. Andrew Jackson, he bought and sold slaves. Exodus chapter 21 verse 16. And he that stealeth a man, the Lord says, and he that stealeth a man, like George Washington stole a man, Thomas Jefferson stole a man, Andrew Jackson is responsible for stealing a man. Like the so-called white man, our oppressor in America, is responsible for stealing man. The so-called white man throughout the earth, throughout the world, is responsible for stealing a man. The transatlantic slave trade is about stealing men. The reason why America was able to be America is because they stole men. Because the economy of America was so successful is because they stole men. The reason why Abraham Lincoln had to fight the South to reunite the Confederate to the Union, right? It's because they stole men. The Lord says, he that stealeth men. It's like he that stealeth a man. Like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Andrew Jackson. And he that stealeth a man and selleth him. It says, and selleth him, man. George Washington sold blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians on the auction block. Thomas Jefferson sold blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians on the auction blocks. Andrew Jackson, the founding fathers of America, the presidents of America, they sold so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians on those auction blocks. That's what these presidents did. That's what they did. It says, and Slovakia. It says, and Selekam. That's what these presidents did. That's what they did. Listen, man. The Navajo were on those auction blocks. The Cherokee were on those auction blocks. The Iroquois were on those auction blocks. The Creek, the Muskegee were on those auction blocks. The Seminole Indians were on those auction blocks. The Pequot Indians were on those auction blocks. The Blackfoot were on those auction blocks. The Sioux were on those auction blocks. The Dominicans were on those auction blocks. The Puerto Ricans were on those auction blocks. The Colombians were on those auction blocks. The Mexicans were on those auction blocks. The Costa Ricans, the Cubans, they were on the auction blocks. So-called blacks and Hispanics and Native Indians, we were the ones on those auction blocks. We were the ones that the presidents of America that are honored to this day on every third Monday of February. They were the ones selling us on those auction blocks. They were doing it. It was them. I'm not making this up. This is history. Is today not the history class? Today is the history class. This is history. You learned in history that George Washington was a great man. And he was a man of valor. And he was a man to be revered. And he was a man to be honored. That's what you were taught. Because he established the Supreme Court. He was one of the ones that were writing the Constitution. He believed in going to church. He was such a great man. But you know what they leave out every year about George Washington? That he owned slaves. And not just 3 or 4, over 600 slaves. Thomas Jefferson. He was, oh my God. Thomas Jefferson was disgusting. Like, I mean, hold on. I'm going to read this. Most historians believe, but this is fact, Jefferson fathered multiple slave children with the enslaved woman Sally Hemings, the likely half-sister of his late wife, Martha Wales Skeleton. Right? Listen, Thomas Jefferson, right, was a disgusting, filthy, disgusting, vile bastard of the earth. He wasn't a man to be honored. He stole a man. And he believed in selling a man, which is so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. And this man is supposed to be honored? This man was a rapist. This man was a child molester. He believed in sexually assaulting black, Hispanic, and Native Indian women. These are the very same devils that our sister decided to lay in bed with, like Serena Williams. That's his ancestor. That's Thomas Jefferson's descendant. That's one of his descendants. That's his people. The husband of Serena Williams. But these are the devils we choose to have sex with and sleep with and marry. Filthy, disgusting pedophiles, sexual assaulters, you understand? Sexual deviants, child molesters. That's who we want to lay down with? Who owned over 600 slaves? The sister says, I'm not sure which one it was that pulled out a slave's teeth for himself. That was George Washington. In school, you were taught that George Washington had wooden teeth. But the history is George Washington had the teeth of slaves. He was a brutal slave master. He would send his overseers, and the overseers would have a pick, right? Like a pick, not like a pick, but like something to chisel with, which is a pick. And they would have a hammer. So let's say a hammer and a chisel, so no one's confused. And they would hold down the slaves, right? And they would take it, and they would beat down in the slave's mouth to take their teeth out and gouge them out. No laughing gas. No anesthesia. None of that. Just opening up a slave's mouth and chiseling away. Blood leaking out of their mouths, regardless if it's from a man, regardless if it's from a woman, regardless if it's from a child. That's what these devils would do. But these are men that are to be honored, right? These are men that should have a day every third Monday of the month of February. The month of Black History Month. Not to throw that out there. I mean, I'm just saying. I'm not no conspiracy theorist. I'm not your Umar Johnson, blackity black type, whatever the hell it is. But I'm just saying, slave masters are honored during Black History Month. But you want to be an American. You want to still go and vote every 4 years for these bastards and for these devils and put them into office to rule over you. And in their law and in their society that you love so much, they say slave masters and child molesters and pedophiles and rapists and sexual assaulters will be honored during your month that you guys decided to whatever it may be. I'm not making this up, am I? Can someone tell me I'm lying? Anyone online, am I lying? Am I making this up? Or am I just telling you the truth? I mean, please let me know, and I'll just shut down class. I mean, I'll do it. But please let me know if I'm wrong. Exodus chapter 21, verse 16. He that stealeth a man and selleth him, or if he be found in his hand, like we are in the hands of America. Like so-called blacks, Hispanics, Native Indians, as slaves, right? As 3/5 of a man, as slaves, as second-class citizens in America, we are found in the hands of our oppressor. And we, to this day, are still in the hands of our oppressor. Alright? We were most definitely found in the hands of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Andrew Jackson. And we're going to talk about Andrew Jackson. Oh, we going to talk about Andrew Jackson. Don't think we not. We focused on George Washington. And now we're talking about Thomas Jefferson. But we're going to get on Andrew Jackson. Because he's a founding father. He is the president of the United States. He was a president of the United States of America. Don't worry about it. The Lord says, he shall surely be put to death. He shall surely be put to death. If you stole a man, just like America, if you stole a man, just like Andrew Jackson, if you stole a man, just like Thomas Jefferson, if you stole a man, just like George Washington, if you stole so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, If you sold so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, the Lord says, he shall surely be put to death. It is a death penalty for you to sell so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. It is a death penalty to sell so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians on auction blocks. These are not my words, but these are the Lord's words. So when we say our oppressor is going to be put to death by the hands of God, because he sold blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, because he stole us and sold us and took us over the Atlantic by the billions, man, by the millions. That's why we say that our oppressor, these devils, are going to be put to death by the hands of God, because it says it in the Bible. It says it, these are his words. It was said by God. These are God's words written in the scripture that the Lord is going to put these devils to death because he sold us into slavery. I pray you understand. These devils sold us on the auction blocks without a care in the world and didn't give a damn about us. Where was the humanity? 99 million black people, 99 million so-called black people died on the transfer, the voyage of the transatlantic slave trade alone. 99 million died. 99 million killed just by the transfer and the voyage of so-called black people during the transatlantic slave trade. And you don't think these devils aren't going to pay for their crimes? These men are responsible for it. George Washington is responsible for it, but he's honored every third Monday. Thomas Jefferson is responsible for it, but he should be honored every third Monday. Andrew Jackson is responsible for it, but he should be honored every third Monday of the month of February, which is Black History Month. These men are responsible for the oppression of so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. He is responsible. These men are responsible for the oppression of so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians in America. And I pray you understand. All right, let's get it. All right, let's go ahead and get it. Now, Andrew Jackson, right? He was the 7th president of the United States, right? Andrew Jackson. He was the president of the United States. Right? So, Andrew Jackson was the president of the United States. He was the 7th president of the United States. And he owned 200 slaves. So he owned 200 slaves, right? Andrew Jackson, he owned 200 slaves. Now let's read about Andrew Jackson. That's crazy. Salakia. Let's get Deuteronomy chapter 27, verse 17 too as well. Let's go ahead. Get Deuteronomy chapter 27, verse 17. Alright, we're going to go ahead and get into it. So let's talk about Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson is a president. He was a former president of the United States of America. And he was the 7th president of the United States of America, right? let's go ahead and talk about it. Let's go ahead and get it, right? He was the 7th president of the United States of America, and he owned 200 slaves. He was a slave master. He was a slave owner. And it says, Andrew Jackson owned many slaves. He owned 200 slaves. One controversy during his presidency was his reaction to anti-slavery acts. So, if you don't know what the anti-slavery tracts were, during the summer of 1835, Northern abolitionists began sending anti-slavery tracts through the postal system into the South. Pro-slavery Southerners demanded that the Postal Service ban distribution of the materials, which were deemed incendiary, and some began to riot. Jackson wanted sectional peace and desired to place it Southerners ahead of the 1836 election. He fiercely disliked the abolitionists, whom he believed were, by instituting sectional jealousies, attempting to destroy the Union. Jackson also did not want to condone open insurrection. He supported the solution of Postmaster General Amos Kendall, which gave Southern postmasters discretionary powers to either send or detain the anti-slavery tracts. That December, Jackson called the Congress to prohibit the circulation through the South of incendiary publications intended to instigate the slaves to insurrection. So this was the controversy during Andrew Jackson's presidency. Now, to bring it down to layman's terms, right? There was, during his presidency, there were people that were anti-slavery, then there were people that were pro-slavery, right? Right? Now, I'm going to continue reading, but keep this in mind. During the time of Andrew Jackson's presidency, there were people that were anti-slavery, and there were people that were pro-slavery. Let's keep this in mind. During his campaign for the presidency, he faced criticism for being a slave trader. He did not free his slaves in his will. Right? So Andrew Jackson, right? He was a slave owner, right? Let me see. I want to go ahead and get it. I think I'm going to read just about all of this. Okay. Yeah, I'm about to read most majority of it. So, Andrew Jackson was a slave master, and during his time, there were anti-slavery and pro-slavery people. Andrew Jackson never freed his slaves because he was pro-slavery. He was a slaveholder because Andrew Jackson knew that the devil he was not for the slaves, quote unquote. He was not for blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. Andrew Jackson wanted to enslave blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians and keep so-called black people, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians enslaved. That was his motive, right? So, let's talk about it. So, now, this may blow your mind. This is the reason why I brought it up. Andrew Jackson was a slave holder, right? Everybody heard that, right? Andrew Jackson was a slave holder. He was a slave owner. He was a slave master. And he had 200 slaves. Keep that in mind. Let's get it. On IndianCountryToday.com, here's an article. Andrew Jackson was a wealthy slave owner and a famous Indian killer, gaining the nickname Sharp Knife. Sharp Knife from the Cherokee. So, he was a wealthy slave owner, meaning this man was rich. Andrew Jackson, the man to be honored every third Monday of February during Black History Month, he was a wealthy slave owner and infamous Indian killer, right? Infamous, meaning he's not known for it, but he was very famous for it, right? Right? Indian killer, and he gained a nickname by it, by the Cherokee, by the actual very people that he was killing, which was Sharp Knife, right? Now here we go. This is going to blow your mind. He was also the founder of the Democratic Party. I want y'all to take y'all fingers. Get all that out your ear. Go ahead. Get it out. Go like this. Go like this. I want y'all to hit your ears like this. And I want you to tip your other ear and go like this. Go like this. Alright? I want y'all to clear your ears out. Because I'm going to say that one more time. Andrew Jackson, a slave owner, a slave master that owned 200 slaves. Right? He owned 200 slaves. And he was pro-slavery. Right? He was also the founder of the Democratic Party. Now, you guys tell me, I want y'all to tell me, did I just blow your mind? Did I just blow your mind? This devil, this oppressor, this filthy, disgusting, vile bastard of the earth was the founder of the Democratic Party. The very same party that we risked our lives in the 60s to vote for. The very same party that we spend hour after hour and hour in long lines just to vote for. A filthy, disgusting, vile slave master, slave owner, Andrew Jackson, is the founder of that very party. But somehow, America makes so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians that if we vote Democrat and we are Democratic and we vote for a Democratic president, something is going to change for black people. This very party is founded on slavery. This very party is founded on the oppression of black people. This very party is founded on the murder of black people in America. This very party is founded on the oppression of the Hispanics. This very party is founded on the murder, the bloodshed, the rape, the pedophile, the child molestation, the lynching of the Native Indians and the blacks and the Hispanics in America. The Democratic Party. But to this day, in the year of 2021, we still go out and vote. We still go out and vote Democrat. Because we believe the Democrats today that were founded on the oppression of black people are no longer founded on the oppression of black people. and they're going to change the conditions of black people. They're going to, the so-called black people, they're going to change the conditions of the so-called Hispanics in America. They are going to change the conditions of the so-called Native Indians in America. The Democratic Party will. Andrew Jackson is the founder of the Democratic Party. Does anybody know what Andrew Jackson did to the Native Indians? Can anybody tell me online, what did Andrew Jackson do to the Native Indians in America? Does anybody know? If not, you will learn. Oh man, the brother said relocated them. Ooh wee, you're in for a surprise. And guess what? The Trail of Tears. Okay, the Trail of Tears. Now the brother said relocated them. Okay, I'm going to use the word relocated, right? So you get an understanding of how disgusting America really is, right? Because I know you're just okay. I know you're answering my question to the best of your ability because of what you were taught by America. And I'm going to teach you how disgusting America is, right? America is so disgusting that they got a so-called black, Hispanic, and Native Indian answering a question about the Native Indians with the word relocated. That's how disgusting America is. We shouldn't even use the word relocated. Now, you're not at fault, brother, by the way, nor am I picking on you. You know what I'm saying? This is all love, you know what I'm saying? And you know, the generals and captains say this all the time. This is out of love, right? You know what I'm saying? It's not your fault, right? It's these devils. And their school system is why a so-called Native Indian is using the word relocated, or a so-called Hispanic is using the word relocated, or a so-called black is using the word relocated, referring to the Native Indians, right? It's these devils, man. The sister said the Trail of Tears. That's an event of the Native Indians in Andrew Jackson. So, it says, he was also the founding father of the Democratic Party, demonstrating that genocide, oh snap, there was genocide in America? Wait, time out, y'all. There was genocide in America. Oh my God. I thought it was, oh my God, there was genocide in America. I thought it was only Hitler. I thought Hitler was the only man on earth that believed in genocide and committed genocide against the people. I thought it was only Hitler. Oh my God. It was your goddamn founding father who gets honored every third Monday in the month of February, which is now Black History Month. And it says, demonstrating that genocide against indigenous people is a non-partition issue. It says a non-partition issue. Does anybody know what non-partition is? Does anybody know what non-partition means? It says, demonstrating that genocide against indigenous people is a non-partition issue. Does anybody know what it means to be a non-partition? I'll tell you. And y'all can still give me the answer. Non-partition means it has nothing to do with a specific party. So in America, you had different parties. I believe during that time you had the Democratic Party, and I believe you had like the Whig Party, which I believe eventually turned into the Republican Party. I may have it backwards or whichever it may be, but the Democratic Party, and I believe the Republican Party was eventually going to be established, if not already established. But just know there were parties in America. There were different political parties in America. So a partition itself deals with a specific political party. So if it's non-partition, meaning this has nothing to do with a political party. So the genocide on the Native Americans had nothing to do with a Republican Party or a Democratic Party. What is that telling you? I need y'all to think a little. If the slaughter of the Native Americans had nothing to do with a Republican Party or a Democratic Party, right? Then what is that saying? What is that telling you? Can anybody tell me what that's telling you? If the slaughter of the Native Indians, the genocide of the Native Americans in America, had nothing to do with a political party or a Democratic Party, what is that telling you? And I want to see who can answer my question right. If you can answer this question right, you'll have a breakthrough. Not money. No, it's not money. If the genocide of Native Indians, the genocide of Native Americans had nothing to do with a political party, had nothing to do with a Democratic Party or a Republican Party, then what is that telling you? It didn't deal with money, but what is that telling you? It's not telling you that it dealt with money. Can anybody give it a shot? It's telling you something. The genocide of the genocide of Native Indians had nothing to do with a political party. It had nothing to do with the Democratic Party. It had nothing to do with the Republican Party. It had to deal with the Anybody tell me? It had to deal with the what? I'll give you guys one more shot, and then I'll answer the question for time's sake. Y'all may not get it. I haven't said this yet in class, so I won't hold you guys accountable. But what does this have to? But you're gonna have to think a little. What does this have to deal with? So committing genocide on the Native Indians had nothing to do with a Democratic Party or a Republican Party. It had to deal with to give you guys a hint, the Democratic Party did not make a decision, right, to commit genocide against the Native Indians. The Republican Party did not make a decision to commit genocide, right, on the Native Indians. So who made the decision? If it wasn't with a party. If you can answer this, you'll have a breakthrough. And you'll understand that it has nothing today. What's happening to so-called blacks, Hispanics, Native Indians has nothing to do with a Republican Party or a Democratic Party. Like, if you can understand this, you can have a breakthrough. And if you get this breakthrough, you'll truly understand that the oppression happening to blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians in America has nothing to do with the Democratic Party nor the Republican Party. It has to do with food. Lucky. Independence? No, not independence. Okay, I'll give you guys the answer. It had to do with the decision, right, of the so-called white man himself, with our oppressor himself, with these devils themselves. They didn't need a party to make a decision to commit genocide on another race of people. Because these devils are so filthy and so disgusting and so vile. Because our oppressor is so goddamn evil. Because the so-called white man has so much hatred for so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. It wasn't about a political party of making a decision like that. It had to deal with them. So the reason why the Native Indians were murdered and slaughtered is because the white man is the devil. The so-called white man is the devil. Not the Democrat, not the Republican. The so-called white man is the devil. That's why there was genocide committed on another race of people. It had nothing to do with a political party. Now bring me home. Just like today, the reason why we get murdered in the street, the reason why we get murdered in the street like dogs, the reason why we're mass incarcerated, the reason why we're so poor, the reason why we're in poverty in America, which is one of the richest countries on the earth, the reason why we're so poor in this country that's rich and in poverty, and we're killing each other the way we are, and the way we get murdered by the police, and the way we get murdered by Neighborhood Watch, the reason why there's no justice for so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians in America is because the white man is the devil that the Bible speaks of. It's not because the Republicans took office. We think these things are happening to us because the Republicans are in office. So our solution is, if we put Democrats into office, maybe these things will change. But it was never about a political party. It's because these white men are devils. These people are devils. They're evil. They're wicked. They're vile. They're disgusting. They murder us like dogs. They mass incarcerate us. They lynch us like there's no tomorrow. They rape and molest us. They sex traffic our women. This is what these devils do to so-called blacks, Hispanic, Native Indians in America. It wasn't a Republican Party. It wasn't no damn Democratic Party. It was the simple fact that the white man, the so-called white man, is the devil that the Bible speaks of. It's just that simple. So Andrew Jackson is the so-called devil that the Bible speaks of, that gets honored every third Monday in the month of February, which is now the month that Black History is celebrated. It's called Black History Month. That's when this wicked, disgusting, vile bastard gets honored. Take that into consideration when you spend 10 hours in a line to cast a vote for the Democratic Party that was established by the very same vile, disgusting murderer of the face of the earth, Andrew Jackson. Consider that when you cast your vote in the next 4 years. I know you're going to do it. You're not going to stop yourself. You don't know no better. You think these people love you. You think the Democrats love you. You think the Democrats are for black people. That's why you voted for your God, Barack Obama. That's why we voted for Barack Obama. That's why we voted for Joe Biden. Because we think these people love us. And they're for us. And they'll do anything in their power to quote unquote save us from the oppression in America. But it's literally their race of people. They're the cause of the oppression happening to so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians in America. I pray, and I mean I pray you understand. Let's continue reading. President Thomas Jefferson. So President Jefferson, who quote unquote believed that slavery listen, hold on, time out. Salaki, on my behalf, I forgot to bring this out. I'm going to backtrack just a little. Don't get mad at me, I'm going to backtrack a little. How many heard, yes or no, online? How many heard that Thomas Jefferson wanted slavery to be abolished? How many heard that? Okay, you heard, okay. Anybody else heard that? Khan, okay. Okay, I have anybody else? Okay, all right. So you guys have heard that Thomas Jefferson was against slavery, right? And he wanted slavery to be abolished. But he had 600 plus slaves. Do you guys need me to break that down for you? This man wanted to abolish slavery and was against slavery, but had 600 plus slaves. Do I need to break that down for anyone? You can say yes or no. It's okay. Do I need to break that down? This man, Thomas Jefferson, the president, a former president of the United States of America, did not believe in slavery, right? Did not want slavery, and wanted one day slavery to be abolished. But he had 600 plus slaves. I'll break it down to you. Either that's not true, or he was just a filthy, disgusting liar. It's just that simple. Either what they taught us was wrong and was false, right? Or Thomas Jefferson was a filthy, disgusting liar. Because it doesn't make sense that you are against slavery and want to abolish slavery, but have 600 plus slaves. Damn near the same amount of the slaves George Washington had. Think about it. These men were wealthy slave masters. These men were wealthy slave owners. And we in America, who we put our trust in, that we love so much, honors them. Every third Monday of the month of February, which is the month that celebrated Black History, which is Black History Month. I forgot to bring that out. Salaki. I forgot to bring that out for a second. These are men that are supposed to be honored and revered and put on a pedestal. Am I right? So it goes and says, his President Jefferson, right? So like President Jefferson, which is who? Thomas Jefferson. President Jefferson is being referred to President Thomas Jefferson, right? Salakia had appointed him. So Thomas Jefferson appointed Andrew Jackson, right? Because Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, they were the founder of the Republican Democratic Party. And eventually Andrew Jackson founded out of that the Democratic Party. All right. President Thomas Jefferson had appointed him to appropriate Creek and Cherokee lands. So it says appropriate. Does anybody know what appropriate means? Does anybody know what appropriate means? Appropriate. Appropriate. Does anybody know what that word means? Appropriate. Thomas Jefferson. President Thomas Jefferson, right, gave an order, had appointed Andrew Jackson to appropriate Greek and Cherokee lands. Creek. I come from the Creeks, from the Muskegee tribe, from Dothan, Alabama. That's who my father is. Which are also known as the Seminole Indians as well. They're one of the tribes of the Seminole Indians, right? The Cherokee are also native Indian from the tribe of Gad, right? So, if you guys don't know what appropriate means, appropriate literally means to take exclusively possession of, meaning to take possession of, right? So Thomas Jefferson ordered Andrew Jackson to take the land up the creek in the Cherokee. The Lord says in Deuteronomy chapter 27 verse 17, cursed be he that removeth his neighbor's landmark. It says, cursed be he that removeth his neighbor's landmark. You are not supposed to take anyone's land like that, man. It says, cursed be he that removeth his neighbor's landmark. You aren't supposed to come into a land, right? For no reason at all. With no real cause. Like these people, like the Native Indians, wanted nothing but peace with America. But these devils come into the land and remove their landmark and continue to push them further and further and further out of their country. That's what America did. The Lord said that type of man will be cursed. That's what the Lord said. That type of man will be cursed. That removed his neighbor's landmark. You are not supposed to take the land, right, of anyone like that, man. For no cause, for no reason at all. And these devils didn't just take it. This is what he did. In his brutal military campaigns against Indians, Andrew Jackson recommended that troops systematically kill Indian women and children after massacres in order to complete the extermination. Now that's disgusting, right? Now you guys got to tell me that is absolutely disgusting. Thomas Jefferson and Andrew Jackson, the founding fathers of America, former presidents of the United States of America, honored and revered, put on a pedestal every third Monday of the month of February, which is Black History Month, the celebration of Black history, right? These men systematically murdered, systematically killed Indian women and children after massacres in order to complete the extermination. That is disgusting. So even after the war, listen, man, even after the war that they had with the Native Indians to take the land of the Native Americans, and they're pushing them out. This is the Trail of Tears, right? They're pushing them out, right? They're pushing them out, right? They're relocating them. This is your relocation. The murder. This is your relocation. The systematic killing of women and children, of Native American women and children. That's your relocation. That's the relocation of Native Americans in America. The systematic killing after the massacres done to our people. Understand that the systematic killings of Native Indian women and children after the massacre, like they massacred us. They murdered us by the millions. There are over 77 million Native Indians murdered in America. And Andrew Jackson has the majority of those kills, and his troops and his armies, under the order of Thomas Jefferson. This was during the time of Thomas Jefferson. And it's not over yet. And then when Andrew Jackson, which is the president of America, right, a former man to be revered and honored, he continued the murder of the Native Americans by the millions. So this is what we have to understand. They systematically killed Native Indian women and children after they already murdered almost all the Native Indians. They said, you know what? We massacred y'all. We already took out your warriors. We murdered almost all of your men. Don't worry about it. You know what we're going to do next? We're going to kill the women and children. To complete the extermination. It was these devils' job. It was this devil's goal to exterminate the Native Americans. It was their goal to exterminate the Cherokee and the Creek. It was their goal to exterminate the Sioux and the Iroquois and the Blackfoot and the Muskegee and the Pequot. It was literally their goal to exterminate Native Indians, the Native Americans, man. But these are your presidents. This is the history of President's Day. President's Day was founded, right? President's Day was founded. The reason why President's Day is a holiday in America is because it was because of the murder of the Native Americans. The reason why President's Day is honored in America, because the enslavement of so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians in America. The reason why President's Day is honored because of slavery. That's why President's Day is honored. Because it was the presidents of the United States. It was the presidents of the United States that made America, America. That's why President's Day is honored. Because it was the presidents that enslaved black people. It was the presidents that enslaved the Hispanics. It was the presidents that enslaved the Native Indians. It was the presidents that murdered black people by the thousands. It was the presidents that murdered the Hispanics by the thousands. It was the presidents that murdered the Native Indians by the thousands into the millions. It was the founding fathers of America that are revered and honored in America every third Monday of the month of February, which is Black History Month. It was the founding fathers that murdered, lynched, molested, sold, sex trafficked, raped, sexually assaulted, lynched, murdered so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians in America by the thousands. That's why it's honored. That's why it's celebrated till this day. But once again, we still gonna go out and vote, right? Vote Biden, right? Vote or die, right? Disgusting, filthy, disgusting devils. That's exactly what they are. Just disgusting devils, man. This is President's Day. So now we know, we finally know the truth behind President's Day. These are your presidents that you vote for every 4 years. These are your presidents. I brought it out before. It was Andrew Jackson that founded the Democratic Party. The very same party that you stand in line every 4 years to vote for. And he was a slave owner. So you're going to choose a party that's founded on slavery? Really? Like, hello? Can anybody hear me? So we're going to choose as a people the party that was founded by a slave master that owned 200 slaves, that was most definitely pro-slavery. He was a military general who murdered over thousands and thousands of Native Indians on the order, in the command of his commanding-in-chief at the time, Thomas Jefferson. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. But Thomas Jefferson was a man that's supposed to be against slavery. Like, this man's against, apparently Thomas Jefferson's against slavery. And he wanted to abolish slavery, but he had 600 plus slaves. And ordered a man that was a slave owner to murder the Native Indians on top of that. Hey guys, anyone listening, by the way, this might become a shock to you. I don't know if y'all may know this. Don't tell anybody that I told you this, though. The Native Americans were enslaved too. They were also sold as slaves on the auction blocks right next to black people. Don't say I told you. There's a reason why your cheekbones are the way they are. There's a reason why you always tell your family, oh yeah, I have a little Native Indian in me. That's because they were slaves just like us. We were slaves just like black people. The Native Indians were slaves. The Native Americans were slaves. Oh, you thought we were all on reservations? Reservations are kind of new compared to when it comes to the times of slavery. And no one talked about it, right? No one talked about that. No one talks about that. That the Native Americans were slaves on the reservations. Actually, before the reservations even became a thing. Before the reservations became a thing, it was the Native Americans on the plantation picking your cotton. I mean, Salaki. Hopefully I didn't hurt no one's feelings out there. Let's continue reading. The Creeks lost 23 million acres of land in southern Georgia and central Alabama. Now it says the Creeks lost 23 million acres of land in southern Georgia and central Alabama. Now, if you guys don't know anything about me, I come from the Creeks, from the Muskogee tribe, out of Dothan, Alabama. My grandfather was Native Indian, right? And this article just said the Creeks, which is the Muskogee tribe, if you did not know. It's the Native Indian Muskogee tribe. The Creeks lost 23 million acres of land in southern Georgia and central Alabama. We lost 23 million acres. Does anybody know how big 1 acre is? Can anybody tell me how much an acre? You know how big an acre is? To have an acre of land is a lot of land, by the way. And it says concert. That's why in the South there are a lot of blacks that are mixed with Indians. My grandma had Indian. Yes, that's very true. A lot of blacks, Hispanics, Native Indians We are Native Indians. All of us are Native Indians. Just that. If you really want to break it down, I guess. Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, we are the same people. All right? All right? So now, does anybody know how much an acre of land is? An acre of land is a lot. For you to even own an acre of land in America to this day is a beautiful thing. An acre of land is a lot. Even 5 acres is amazing. So we lost 23 million acres of land. That's a lot of land to lose. You know how many houses were destroyed? How many tents and teepees taken down? How many buffalo had to be murdered to get that 23 million acres of land? How many Native Indian men, women, and children had to be murdered to get that 23 million acres of land throughout central Alabama and southern Georgia? Paving the way for cotton plant. Oh my God, Salaki, I should have kept reading. It said paving the way for cotton plantation slavery. Oh my God. I'm going to end the class here. God dang. Oh my God. It literally said paving the way for cotton plantation slavery. So you think all the Native Americans were just murdered? You thought all the Native Indians just disappeared? They were relocated, right? Like, that's how much the devil, man, that's how, listen, man, the white man is just the devil. That we are using words of like relocation. When they strategically murdered us and systematically murdered us, and then after they got finished murdering us, they enslaved us to pick the cotton throughout Georgia and Alabama. These devils are monsters, man. But this is President's Day. And we want to celebrate birthdays too. George Washington's birthday is celebrated on the murder of so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians in America. But we want to continue to celebrate birthdays in America. When these devils celebrate their birthdays, they honor the fact that they murdered millions of Native Indians and they murdered millions of blacks and Hispanics. That's why they celebrate birthdays, to worship their God and to worship themselves, which is George Washington himself, that murdered, and their presidents that murdered 77 million Native Indians and 99 million black people during the transatlantic slave trade alone. Well, happy birthday to you. You understand? It's crazy. His frontier warfare and subsequent negotiations opened up much of the southeast U.S. to settle colonialism. So, all right. So what that's saying is, because of his warfare, he was able to conquer the majority of the Southeast. And anybody know what the Southeast is? That's your state of Florida. That's your Alabama. That's your Georgia. That's your South Carolina. That's your North Carolina. That's all. This is all Southeast. All right. But we'll stop at South Carolina. So from Florida, Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, parts of North Carolina, that's like your Southeast. And because of Andrew Jackson, he was able to conquer a majority of them. Right? Andrew Jackson was not only a genocidal maniac against the indigenous people of the Southwest. So he wasn't just a genocidal maniac. a genocidal maniac, just like Hitler. Your president, Andrew Jackson, is a genocidal maniac, just like Hitler. I'll say that one more time. Andrew Jackson is a genocidal maniac, just like Hitler. He was also racist against African peoples and a scofflaw who violated nearly every standard of justice. So when it says African people, he's referring to that he was also racist, obviously, against black people. Meaning, he wanted to murder you just as much as he wanted to murder Native Indians. He wanted to enslave you just as much as he wanted to enslave Native Indians. That's all that was saying. Andrew Jackson hated Native Indians, hated black people, so-called black people, just as much as he hated the Native Indians. Andrew Jackson, one of the founding fathers of America, a former president of the United States, that's viewed and honored on every third Monday of the month of February, which is Black History Month, wanted to enslave black people just as much as he wanted to enslave the Native Americans. He hated the so-called black man just as much as he hated the Native American man. That's all it's saying. That's all it is. And this is your President's Day. Da, 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 da. That's your President's Day. Everybody, that's your President's Day. I pledge allegiance to the flag, to the United States of America, to the republic to which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all. That's your President's Day. Can we finally admit that this country is just a full of crap? That's all I'm saying. As blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians in America, can we just finally come to the conclusion that this country is not our land? Like, this nation is not our land, and we should be absolutely separate from these devils? Can we finally come to the conclusion of that? That we need to do for ourselves and stop worrying about these devils? We need to fix ourselves and stop going to them to fix us, because all they're going to do is continue to oppress us. Can we finally come to that conclusion after today, after President's Day, the truth behind President's Day? Can we finally do it? Can we finally understand it? Thank you. Because we need to. Because we absolutely need to. The oppression of our people is absolutely ridiculous in America. No other race of people have been oppressed in America like blacks, Hispanics, Native Indians have been oppressed in America. No other race of people, man. No other race of people have suffered more than blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians in America. No other race has suffered the way we suffered, and the way we and struggled the way we struggled. No other race of people die in America how we die in America. No other nation or race of people has to go through that. We die in the most horrible ways. We die in the most horrible conditions, man. No other race of people has to go through that in America. That's in America. No other race of people. You can't tell me. You can't tell me that other nations of people in America suffer the way so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians suffer in this God-forsaken country. Absolutely not. and you couldn't make me believe it. We're coming to the end of class, all right? Does anybody have any questions? Khan or La'a, does anybody have any questions, Baba Kushab? Any questions? La'a. Okay. With that, we'll get the security announcements. Isupk security announcements. We are the Isupk. Started at 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commandant Juliana. Rule for new brothers and sisters. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to show themselves to the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There is another 6 months in which the brother and sister will court each other. After this 6-month period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Ties, which is a commandment. Numbers 18:21. Malachi, chapter 3, verse 8 through 10. Ma'ashara means tenth in the Hebrew. 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you. Give to treasury department or teacher. Priest fund, free will offering for priests, not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you would like. Upcoming holy convocation is the Feast of Purim, February 24th to 25th. If you're a sister in the school, even if you're a sister anywhere, come to class that day, man. You'll truly learn. It's about the sister Esther. It's about a woman. It's a memorial service for a woman on what she did for the nation of Israel. All right. The next holy convocation of that is the Passover, April 24th in Houston, Texas. In Houston, Texas at the BH Ranch. Do not miss out. Get your garments. Get your garments. Get your dresses. Get ready for that lamb and that unleavened bread. It's going to be a glorious, glorious time. You do not want to miss out. Do not be that brother or sister that's missing out. All right? Please, please make it, man. Get your Passover feast out there. Chop, chop, man. It's crunch time now. All right? And with that, I say, Amen. Saw, put Yahakadam, which means turn, stand, turn, and face the east. The Lord's Prayer in the last one, Kodash, Abano, Shabbat Shemayim, Kodash, Hayah, Shemka, Yahweh, Malakuvka, Dara'ah, Vatazaka, Hayah, Aisha, Ba'arakaza, Kawa, Hayah, Bashemayim, Nathalanah, Lacham, Ka, Yawam, Wasalat Lanawa, Kabawak Nawa, Kasalat Nawa, Kabawak Yanawa, Wala'ah, Dabiya'a Nawa, Banasayawa, Abor, Hawshai Nawa, Mayan, Rai, Kaya, Laka, Hamalakwa, Waha'ala, Waha'ala, La Alalum, of none. In the English, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory. So be it. The prayer of the curses. Blessed are you, Yahweh, King of heaven and earth, and all things living. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh, listen to us now, right now. Send evils and curses, and punishment and destruction to the heathen that speak against us. Thy prophets, the teachers, the princes, the priests, the Israelite brothers, and the school. Send evils and curses, and punishment and destruction to the heathen, and shake loose the treasure of the rich of Israel that refuse to give to the school. Force their riches to enter in thy sanctuary. Send evils and curses, and punishment and destruction to the Edomites, and the nations, and the drug dealers, the court system, the prison system, Planned Parenthood, all the governments of our enemies, Amalek, synagogue, and armies, Roman Catholic Church, the Pope, Egyptology, Aryan Nation, the lesbian movement, spies, workers of witchcraft, NASA space programs, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Wall Street, open up the internet, and the airways, the cable access channels, and the radio channels. Convict the spirit of any of our people that seek to stop us and bring swift destruction to all the heathen that stand in the way or try to stop us from broadcasting your words throughout the planet Earth. Let loose all the plagues. Let loose all the plagues. Let loose all the plagues. Cause them to go to and fro through the earth and consume them. Let the plagues shake the house of the thief and the murderer. Let the other side, Michael and Gabriel, come down with the flying saucers and punish all the heathens that come up against us as we speak that word. Cause we know that all that is the angels that have done it. Cause it to be spread through the media, through the whole world. Cause them to shake up that gun. In the name of Yahweh, thank you always. So be it. Saw, which means to turn. We're going to give a courteous salute to the brothers. All right? Men of Israel, Amadu Shabbat, I know you, Barak, Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shah B'Gatham, Yadi Matah, Saw, La'adwapia, meaning turn to the sisters. Men of Israel, we're going to give a courteous salute to the sisters. Men of Israel, Amadu Shabbat, Aimanu, Barak, Yahweh Shema Al-Thun, Ba'ashim Yahushua. Yadi Matah, class dismissed.